Let's go into the player introductions.
Well, of course, here we are, and Heavy Rain is going to be the map that we're battling it out on. Spawning up in the top left-hand position, representing Alien Invasion, it is CPU.
Yes, and his opponent, the Red Terran from Team Mouse Control, he's teetie in the bottom right. And, well, no early shenanigans at this stage, but that's not exactly something I would expect. I think teetie is definitely not the favorite here in this series, if only from the fact that his current account is not in Grandmaster League, but you never really know these days. You know, players can have barcodes, they can have Smurf accounts, and I hope for teetie's sake that he's done a lot of preparation, maybe a bit of homework to prepare from his opponent. I'm not sure if CPU has a very specific style, but I'm pretty sure we're going to find that out.
Well, in terms of style, what we can be getting down is obviously some of the standard things that PvT are going to see, and I personally like to think of PvT as kind of having three main stages, where you've got the early position where obviously gateway pushes and things like that can be pretty damn terrifying, until of course you start getting either some good bunkers up, Stim, Marine Marauders and Medevac, then swing the power really into Terran favour. And then you get into that late game composition where it's the Colossi High Tempo up against the Ghosts and Vikings. But the cliff area on this map, Heavy Rain, has a lot open for it, so maybe seeing some Blinkstalk rule-ins.
Yeah, that's a very potential and very specific strategy, but it's also you know, still quite popular from you know, just a strategy perspective. As you mentioned, it's quite good, and the only thing a Terran can really do in the early stages of the game is to get a quick Reaper out and try to go for some scouting, just to see what his opponent is up to. We saw already that teetie scouted the bottom right of his base to check for proxies, which I think is a very good choice. I noticed in the qualifiers that players who were usually considered a level above their opponent were absolutely not afraid to cheese, to go for the good old proxy 2-gate, so that it would just be a, you know, a micro fight and the better player would come out on top. So very good job by him already.
Now CPU has just chucked down his second assimilator. This is pretty early. It's going to delay his expansion slightly, but also open up the option to get some more tech down faster, which could be leading into things like the Blinkstalk play, could also be for a fast Stargate. Sending a probe out, a bit of a weird way actually here, CPU. Some sneaky stuff certainly on the cards.
Yeah, Heavy Rain isn't a particularly small map, and it has all these nooks and crannies, you know, all over the map where you can do sneaky things like this as a Protoss. And even with the fact that there is a Reaper out on the map, teetie is going to have a very hard time to find out which strategy his opponent is actually going to go for. Of course, when you see double gas and no no third pylon and a bit of a delayed expansion, then it kind of goes for it, speaks for itself that it could be a blink or a proxy Stargate. Oh, Reaper almost gets caught, but just gets away there.
The important thing though is, even though this has been seen and you know there's going to be some kind of proxy tech, it's very difficult for teetie to actually work out what that is. As you said, could be Blinkstalkers, could also be Dark Templar, could be the proxy Stargate. So those all have very different responses from the Terran side. So just because you know something's being proxied, until you see what it is, it's going to be a lot more tough to try and actually get up a good defense to it.
Yeah, and teetie is doing, you know, what he should be doing in this case, sending out as well an SCV to go scout for some proxies, but you know, this map, there's so many new grannies that his Reaper is not able to cover it all in time. He's gone for a quick engineering bay, you know, because it covers about 2 of the 3 builds you mentioned, which is, of course, against Oracles, and as well getting turrets up against DTs is a good choice, but it looks like his CPU is going to go for the blink all-in off of 2 base, or perhaps just for a quick blink pressure build. He still has a lot of options, you know, he hasn't actually committed to anything.
No, there's only the single gateway out at the moment for CPU, so he can still put on some nice pressure. A 2-base blink all-in is very strong, and just seeing those 2 Stalkers out can be a very small giveaway, but ultimately that Reaper wants to see, are there any additional gates yet? And not seeing those will make it, again, a little bit hard to try and judge exactly what it is, and may even push teetie over to thinking that it's DTs.
Yeah, and here are the gates, so it will be a committal to at least 2-base blink play. Oh, he scans them. Very nice timing on the scans. Yeah, this should be the tell for him that this is blink play.
Yep.
DT is very unlikely at this point with this many gates, all at the same time. So we should know that it is gateway. The CPU realizes that as well. And right now it's up to teetie to, you know, get a proper response. But still, the surface area in his main base is so wide and hard to defend that this could still be very, very tricky for the Terran.
Interestingly, teetie choosing to chuck down a second bunker just outside his natural base as opposed to one up in the main. Now, what is really important to note is that there isn't a robotics facility for CPU, so his only high ground vision is coming from the mothership core. Now, in a recent patch that was, of course, nerfed in its vision, so it's going to be harder to maintain that high ground look if he does actually want to get into the main base.
Yeah, he does need that high ground vision, of course, to get up there, and the mothership core is approaching fast. For some reason, this SCV, it will only just now spot these stalkers at the front. teetie, of course, does have the units here, so yeah, these stalkers actually take too much damage and already forced to retreat, so you know, he knows what's up. He can pull SCVs if he needs to defend, so he's not in bad shape yet.
Just want to touch again on the fact that there's a lack of a bunker up in the main, and there's actually some dead space, or lack of vision for teetie, over to the left of his main. That's somewhere where these stalkers could easily get up, if not just barrel down the front, and again, there's just no vision of the edge of this map, allowing such an easy time for CPU to come up and in.
Here are the stalkers. Stim actually finished without any problems, so teetie clears his bunkers, pulls SCVs, and he's going to go for the mothership core. He is going to go for the mothership core, and it just gets away just barely. But now the stalker's fighting on the high ground. He loses high ground vision though, and even though he's cleared, you know, a significant amount of workers, holy crap, 15. You know, this could still go either way.
There's always the mule hammer for teetie to cool down, which will allow him to stabilize somewhat the income because CPU isn't actually producing any probes at the moment. He's cut all of his probe production to produce this many stalkers, but round 2 coming up, that mothership core perilously close to death, and the stalkers just handling this sublimely.
Here's the stim, and teetie doing a good job of baiting that out. More SCVs being pulled, blink towards the low ground, and gets away with, yeah, only, he gets the mothership core. That's a huge mistake there actually by CPU. That wasn't necessary at all.
It's a really good pick off getting that, because without that high ground vision, the stalkers cannot make their way up into the main over this cliff again. It's just flat out impossible. Also with stim and those medevacs out, it's going to be a bit harder, but not if the bunkers are allowed to fall. Blink micro has to be good from CPU, but so far it is.
It has to be good, but there's actually already so many marauders and marines out here. No significant upgrades though, but the stalker force gets absolutely shredded here, and now we see the true power of the Terran in the mid game. With the Marine Marauder medevac, he managed to stabilize. Looking at the worker count, of course the Protoss is up, but in terms of income due to the mules, it's actually quite equal.
The trouble for teetie is his gas income. He's still only on just the 2 gases, but he's only mining from one of those due to the shortage of SCVs. That lack of gas means that his medevac count is a lot lower, and also he's not getting any upgrades. But actually, that's okay this game, because the tech for CPU has been heavily delayed.
Yeah, he's still on just a handful of gates, a single robo. He isn't, well, of course he's getting charged, which is putting his Twilight Council to use, which is still heavily proxied. And of course he's right now still has some form of map control. teetie is stuck in his base, doesn't really want to go out because he's probably afraid of a blink into the main. But yeah, the gas income does hurt him, and he's adding on additional refinery as natural. And from here on, it looks to just be a standard macro game for both.
It should be. If we look at the income again, it is surprisingly level actually. CPU just ahead by 1 gas, so about 100 more Vespian per minute, but CPU adding in that Templar Archives, gonna be getting stormed down, gonna be just steadily cruising into where he wants to be mid-game. But I also love the addition of these Immortals. Gonna be a solid choice up against the Marauders, which clearly can tank out more of the storm damage.
Yeah, with only gateway units, it's very difficult for Protoss to get through the mid game against a Marine Marauder and medevac-based Terran army. Of course, you want to get into Colossus or High Templar as fast as you can, so you can have that area of effect damage in your army, which is so ever effective against Bio. And that's exactly what he's doing. He's chrono boosting the ever-living crap out of that Templar Archives to get Storm as fast as he can. And, well, he's doing a pretty good job, and it's actually now moving out onto the map, going to be clearing up some of these proxy pylons. Yeah, and actually retake map control.
Bearing in mind we're at 13.5 minutes through this game, I'm quite surprised that neither player has yet opted to go for that third base, and that's really credit that both of them are somewhat concerned about imminent pressure. Of course, I'd say if an engagement went down right now, it would be in favour of CPU, just because Storm's kicked in for him, whereas the Ghost Academy for teetie hasn't actually finished yet.
Yeah, I agree. I think both players are playing just very cautiously, respecting each other's strengths. And this Marauder actually takes a peek up and charge. Zealots charge down the ramp, but they go straight into this Marine Ball, which is cutting heavily into this Zealot army, and the rest of the army of the Pro is not doing all that much. Storm has finished though, and here the first Storms land onto the bio, doing a good job. Decent splitting here by teetie, but it feels like this is just a bit too much.
There's still just so much bio there, but these Marauders have been stimmed to death, so able to get picked off. The Medevacs retreat, but in terms of resources lost, well man, this is a really close game. Only a couple of hundred between them.
Yeah, that was almost an effective army trade for both. Of course, Immortals surviving for the Protoss, Medevacs and a few Marauders surviving for the Terran. And right now teetie is going to have to do a whole good job of splitting his army against the Storm and still being able to kite back effectively against Arc Zealots. Actually, the first engagement already takes place, but not good of a position here for CPU.
CPU is losing a lot, and with a good spread, only a couple of High Templar there. The Archon at the front of CPU's army is gonna have to do an awful lot, but teetie doesn't actually have that much infantry remaining. He needs a few more production cycles to make their way through quicker than they are.
Yeah, he does. He's still also quite behind on upgrades, even the fact that there's only just a forge for the pros, and he actually goes in, snipes the bunker. A small storm here. It's a lot of storm here from the Templars, and one big storm there, and SCV's being pulled, and things aren't looking all that good for the Terran. Oh, but then again,
he's got enough stuff. That's the thing, and CPU, he's repeatedly done nicely. He's killed off 35 SCVs so far this game, but he's never just been able to outright kill his opponent, and teetie doing a fantastic job of just holding on. But with the third bases coming down for both, it's going to be a lot harder for teetie to hold on to his third base if CPU continues through with this pressure.
Yeah, I really feel that the push there from CPU was a big overextension. Naturally, he lost his entire army, so it kind of speaks for himself. But with Protoss, you really have to be careful because of the value of your army. Is so much higher usually than the Terran. And Terran army, Terran bio especially, is quite easily replaced, and we see a lot of SCVs demonstrating that fact as a good example of an easily replaceable army.
Yeah, these SCVs, there's actually been a lot pulled. There's 17 SCVs in with this army. That is a substantial pull. And pulling SCVs when Storm's out is an unusual choice because they're very vulnerable to some big storms. So, gonna be very interested to see how this goes. teetie gonna have to be careful too because the rock tower imminently gonna get crushed, but noticing and moves it out himself.
Oh, Storm whiffs. Pretty big waste there actually by our Protoss player, and he currently has 2 Storms available. But yeah, he's warping in a lot of Zealots, and once those upgrades finish, those SCVs, they're just going to be more doing tanking rather than actual fighting.
So both players posturing to try and get a nice engagement angle now. That's really what things are coming out through. But with more ghosts making their way out into the field, the snipes are there, the EMPs are there. Where are the Colossi?
Yeah, we still haven't seen any form of transition here from CPU. Pops the Photonova charge on his third Nexus, ready to establish that. And every second that teetie isn't actually trying to do damage here, CPU is pulling ahead because all these SCVs there are not mining. It's such a basic concept, but it is so true in this case.
And it's really reflected by the incomes of these two, where it's about a 200-300-ish more minerals per minute. More importantly, CPU is currently mining double the gas. Both players have their third bases secured, and even with mules, that's the mineral income difference. So, as you said, the longer this game goes on, the better it becomes for CPU. And my only concern for him is that his Colossi are so late. The Robo Bay only just started now at 19.5 minutes. Generally, you'd see a transition more around the 15-minute mark.
Yeah, the Terran still has a really good shot if a fight is were to occur in a very short time span because of the ghost count and the amount of energy on them. Ghosts, of course, a very good counter to this composition of CPU, which relies so heavily on both shields and energy with the Archons and the Immortals. So let's say that teetie were to land, those money EMPs, he could go for a very, very nice fight, despite the fact that he's so far down on supply. I'm still confused though why he's not putting these SCVs on the minerals. I mean, come on, they're not doing all that much.
I suspect that he's got the MCon control group together and so isn't just utilizing them at all. in any way while they're just sitting or wandering around here. But the other thing to note is, upgrade-wise, they're both very level. However, CPU has got double forges, chrono boosting them nicely, and it has got 2-2 on the way. So,
Oh, this maneuver.
oh, this is a big move. Okay, nice scan.
Nice scan indeed. Oh, he just gets up the ramp back in time, preventing a flank. But oh, nice time warp. EP lands everything here, but so do the storms. Trying to kite back, and still a few more storms available. Charge with the zealots, lots of bio being stormed there, and oh my god, CPU is crushing this. Well, is he?
He's doing a great job. The Immortals are still up. That's the really important thing, because even without their shields, they're still big damage dealers just in the number of them. Zealots tearing through. There's the GG, and game number 1 goes to CPU.